Good morning, everyone. So till now we have talked about the details of how this big illusion that OS is trying to give to every process is being implemented, the illusion of virtual memory and virtual CPU. And we should have appreciated how much work OS has to do in the background to make it convenient for the processes or the users to run their program. And the details of the mechanism that we have studied so far, you would wonder how much things are going in the background, the amount of design and intricacy that is involved in making making things simple for operation purpose. And this is just a single machine. So we can wonder actually, just a simple single machine, if it requires so much intelligence, so much design, so much mechanism in the background. It's a side point, just going a bit philosophical. We can wonder about the universe that we live in. How many multitudes of living entities are actually involving, interacting seamlessly in a seamless manner, and to make it all actually work with ease, that the way it happens, we can hardly, it will be actually childish to think that there is no design behind that, there is no mechanism which is running behind that, or there is no control behind that. So if it is, everything is by random combination of chance, if it is happening, I don't think the world would run any smooth the way it runs, at least the way it runs in a normal thing. So we can, of course, we can all talk about that in an entire lecture on that, but that was just a side point. So let us continue. So till now, what we have said, we have basically assumed that that the address space of the process are small and it can fit into our RAM. And not only single process, but we can run concurrently many processes with very large address spaces, and all of them can fit into memory. But that may not be true, especially in the older days when the memory was very small, when physical RAM was very costly. You could hardly afford to have few megabytes of RAM. And so that was a very crucial problem to be solved by OS. So the last problem that we are going to talk about today is, so it's a part of the same virtual memory illusion that the OS is trying to build up. So the problem, I don't know the number, how many problems we have discussed, so I'm just writing it's the last problem. So what if the virtual memory accessed by the programs, by all the programs, is greater than the RAM of the system, physical memory of the system? So that is a problem that we have to actually address. If our RAM is small, or we are running a very large program, very complex program, which having a lot of libraries, and basically it has a very large address space, and we are running many such programs concurrently, probably hundreds of such programs, then definitely our memory is going to run short. And in that case, how can OS support the execution of all those programs, even if your capacity of the memory is exceeded? So the goal is basically, the goal that that OS will try to support is that user should be able to write code independent of the amount of RAM or physical memory that is available. So we want to facilitate users that they should not be worried about whether the RAM is available or not. they should be able to write their code easily. Actually, as I said, in early days when RAM was very, very small, there was a concept of memory overlays. I don't know whether you have heard about it. I have sometimes done embedded level programming there where memory is very restricted. We have very few RAM of memory, those systems where the RAM is very, very small. There, when you have to write code, you have in the program itself, you have to basically ensure so that this memory overlays was a programming language functionality or method by which you can ensure you have to basically keep track of the code and the data that you want to access. So before even you have to make a function call, or before even you can operate upon a data, you have to ensure that that part of the code and that part of the data is available in your memory. So you have to keep bringing in and out your code and data from your reserved space to your memory, and that all instruction you have to write as a code. So it becomes a very difficult coding to do that kind of a coding when you have to do actually. But nowadays you can see none of the programming language we have to do those things. We write code, do function call it without worrying about whether that code or the data that it may be handling, it is available on RAM or not. So that is because this solution has been implemented from long back. And how this can be achieved? So if you think about of a program, for example, think of a big software program which is probably using many libraries, many complex large libraries, let us say. So probably I work in this computer vision and all that. We sometimes we have to use many libraries, machine learning library, OpenCV library, plotting, visualization library, so many libraries we may have to use. And when you compile that program and it tries to bundle all those libraries into the executable, and then when you try to load it, actually the size of that executable becomes so big. And but rarely does all that portion of the code is being used actively. When you run the program, 90% of the time your program is running only on some 10% of the code, your main logic part portion of the code, and once in a while it is basically asking invoking a function call to some part of the library, whether a plotting library, a plotting function, or a matrix computation function, or maybe a machine learning function, whatever. So those memory or those part of the code or the data is being accessed less frequently or once in a while, and some part of the code and data is being accessed more frequently. So the observation that you can make, that even if you have a program which has large requirement of memory, the process or the programs basically only use a small portion, a small amount of your virtual address space, or at any given moment, and so only those can reside in the memory, and only those pages can be resident in your memory in order to make your program run. You don't need to keep all the entire code, entire data of your program be available simultaneously into your memory in order to start running your program. Remaining part which are not so actively used, remaining pages or virtual and remaining portions can be basically put aside on a larger but slower device, and that device can be your hard disk. So we know from memory hierarchy, we have different data storage devices, or so we have registers which are fastest, then we have cache, then we have basically your RAM, And then you have some kind of disk. Earlier days you'd had hard disk. Nowadays you are finding it replaced by flash based solid state drives and so on. So these are, so you know this, as you go up, basically the device are very faster to access, but but expensive and slow. No, expensive and small. So the size of these data storage devices are small, although they are fast, but you cannot store a lot of things out there, and they are very expensive. And on the down scale, these are slow, but you can have a lot of amount of data, and they are not so costly, but large and cheaper, you can say now. So that is the thing, and we tried, the system architecture and designer try to use this hierarchy in order to get an optimum use of what we want to do. So if our RAM is getting short, some things, we can use part of the hard disk or the slower things to store away that part of the memory which is less frequently used or which is not being used currently. So that is the main idea that we'll be exploring, and how we will explore, how the mechanism will help that we are going to discuss now. But is any question on this idea is clear? Is this idea clear? Mean what we are discussing, what problem we are trying to solve, and what is the main idea behind that? Any question till this point? So generally what happens, just one last piece of here, generally at the level of register and hardware, generally when we have to um, how the data is moved into hardware, into registers and cache, generally only the hardware is involved at this point. At the higher level of hierarchy, the hardware does most of the work, from when the data is accessed from memory and it is cached, or then from cache it is taken to registers and all that, mostly hardware involved. But between this memory and hard disk, whenever the data movement has to happen, generally it is the OS which get involved. And the reason being simpler, because first of all, these are registers and cache, these are many times they are inbuilt into the hardware chip, and these are very fast things. So anything which has to be done and fast should be done at the hardware level. But this disk and all that, normally they are of the order of milliseconds and all that, so they are not so fast access. And so OS itself can do that job. And when OS does the job, we have more flexibility, because hardware we can only implement a little bit of logic, but OS, at the OS level, coding level, we can do a lot of things to try to address different aspects. So at the lower level hierarchy, generally the OS will get involved, and the higher level of hierarchy, including our TLB things we have seen, including managing a TLB, generally hardware is the entity which actually takes care most of the thing. Okay, so if nobody has any question, then let me just start the mechanism. So to facilitate this, OS will reserve uh, OS reserves a part of the disk which is called swap space to store the unreferenced pages or the portions of the virtual address space that are not actively used. Okay. So how it looks like basically. So I'm just going to draw a rudimentary diagram here. So let us say this is your swap space on your disk. Which is part of the disk. And generally this also is divided into some fixed size units. Generally they are called blocks, just like we have pages in our virtual memory and frames in our physical memory. Similarly, our disks are also divided into some fixed size units, and generally they are they are equal to the page size. So the size of the pages that we fix generally is, in most of the systems, it is 4 kilobytes generally for some reasons, but it generally matches with the size, the block size and page size generally matches. So that means we can fit one page into one block, and we can just think of these can also be like a this can be referenced very easily in a using an array of address. So of course we'll talk when we discuss our disk in the last part of the course about the disk, details of disk and all that. We'll talk about the details there in more detail. Right now we are just giving an abstract understanding of that. The actual low level detail is little bit different, the way disks are. So there are sectors. Basically every disk is run in terms of in a unit of a sector, and a sector is made up of 512 blocks of data and whatever. So those all things are later, we'll talk about later, but right now you can just understand this way. So on your disk you have some portion of the disk which is reserved. It maybe n blocks may be there, and so now you have your memory also, and your memory also, you know that you have divided into frames, maybe let us say m frames. Okay, so these are our page frames. So now what we are saying that key, let us say we accessed up, so we basically wanted to access, so we brought some portion of the code into the RAM and started that process running. But now that process wanted to access some other library function which was not yet brought into the memory, but it was somewhere residing in your swap space. So the executable of that program may be residing somewhere in the swap space. So let us say this block of the code, code, now the process makes a reference, and which is not present in your memory. So the OS will try to then, whenever that page is referenced or that memory is required, it will try to bring that page, then bring that block of the code, which is, as I said, is equal to the size of the page, and try to fit into one of the pages in your memory. So when it does it, we call it is swapping in the page. So to swap in, it has to find an empty slot here. If there is an empty slot, then it can easily bring into that and place that code here. But if there is no empty slot, let us say because as I said, memories are already shorter, so already smaller, so maybe probably all the memory was being already used, there was no frame left. So then before it can bring in a new page, a new block of the code, it has to select one of the existing frame or existing page which is basically less frequently used, and it has to be probably swapped out somewhere else in the swap space, in the disk space. So it has to first select one of the pages, and it has to swap out, we can say, or page out, something different names as page out or swap out. I think it's similar. So it has to first select a victim here, which we can kick out, and he kicks it out to the swap space and then brings the new page, because this page is being now inactively defined, and the one which is kicking out probably is not being used so frequently. So in that way, it can keep on swapping in and out pages to and from the memory and to the swap space of the disk. In that way, even though you have a limited RAM, but because you have very big swap space, you can run many processes which require large code and large address spaces, and you can facilitate that because your effective memory has now become m plus n. So if m number of pages plus n number of pages are on your swap space, your effective memory is now m plus n. Although the process does not know, it is transparent to the process. Process thinks that whenever it is requesting the code, it is being made available. That page is being made available to it. So any questions till this point? So we know till now that our virtual address space or our page table. Let me just draw the virtual address space itself. Okay. So let us say we have a virtual address space, and some of the pages may be being used, and some of the pages may not being used. So let us say this page was being used, this page was being used, and other pages. Yeah. Yes.
How does it decide? How does the OS decide which page frame to replace?
Which should be the victim page to be swapped out.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we'll discuss policies for that. So there are different algorithms for policies. So just like in cache, we use least recently used policy to basically select out. So just like when we do something similar, the way we handle cache. So when we bring data from memory to cache, again cache is limited size. So if you have to bring new data, you have to uh, bring out some old data from the cache. And you may have studied in your previous course about some policies. So some similar policies we'll be using. We'll be talking that in the next class. Today I'm discussing on mechanism. Next class we'll be discussing on policies. So you can wait for next class. We will discuss them. There are different. We'll try to optimize. Again, we'll take some metric. We'll try to optimize that using different algorithms, and those are basically called policies. So your virtual address space is basically, you may have some pages which are valid. Let us say this is a valid page, this is a valid page, and others are, let us say, all invalid pages. So, so you in your page table we have a valid bit. That's what I'm showing it here, 0, 1, 0, 0. I think 1 means valid and 0 means invalid. Na? So this is not valid.
Yes, sir.
But this is valid. And let us say this was also in memory. So whenever this page was being will be referenced, you will find that in the memory. But let us say this was valid, but it is not in memory. Well, it is a valid address. Well, it is a valid page which the process wants to use, but it's not currently in memory because either it was never brought into the memory in the first place, or it has been swapped out to the disk at some point of time. So so now there are 3 cases. Earlier we had only 2 cases, valid and non-valid pages, but now we have a third case where we need to keep track of. So how do we keep track of this information? So we'll have to add some more information in our page table to keep track of this thing. So earlier we have seen in our page table entry, we were filling our page frame number. We were using a valid bit to indicate whether the page is a valid page or not. And we were using some read, write, and protection or permission bit, whatever you call them. Now we will also add, there were some other bits I forgot probably. So it was a permission bit, I think. Protection and permission bit were different. But we will now add one more bit called present bit. I mentioned earlier in one of the classes in a passing, but we didn't discuss that. We said we'll discuss that in next future lectures. So this is called present bit, which will be added in our page table entry. And this present bit will basically indicate whether the page is in memory or it is not in memory. So you may have valid bit 1, and only when you have present bit 1, that means it is a valid page and PFN is the location of that page. So the hardware can fetch that page whenever that page is being referenced. But in case if your present bit is 0, then it means it is valid bit. It is a valid page, means it's okay to access that page. But page is not in the disk. Page is not in the RAM. Page is not in. It is somewhere it is on disk. So when this happens, it is called generally, the common term is called page fault, although the better term should be page miss, just like we have a TLB hit and TLB miss. But the most the book uses a term called page fault, although it's not such a so exact. Where fault means you are doing some mischief, something wrong you're doing, and you are basically trying to, you may call it as a fault. But here basically you are accessing a valid page. You are not trying to access an invalid page, and it's not your problem that that page was not in RAM. So it can be called as a page miss more appropriately, but it's okay. So when this happens, this is called page fault and page miss, and then OS will have the responsibility to bring in the page to RAM. Okay, so how will OS know the address of that page on the disk? So OS needs to know the address, the physical address of the page on disk also, na? Because it has to fetch, because it has to go to the swap space and find which page it is trying to access. So different possible ways OS can store this. One possible way which can be just to use this existing space of PFN, because when this is when this present bit is 0, then there is no point in storing any PFN, because there is no actual frame which has been assigned to that. So the same space can be used to actually store the physical address of the page on the disk, the physical address on the disk, and that in that way OS can keep track of that address. And there may be other ways also OS can store that information. uh, so let me just go to one simple disk diagram here. So I'll try to show this. Uh, so when this diagram is showing the control flow during the page fault, when there is a page miss. So how our code will actually what will happen in this, what kind of sequencing will happen. So this is just there is some more details here. I'll talk about the details later on, but this is a big picture that will happen. So you are there is a, let us say your process was running, and basically it made a memory reference from some location. So our hardware will basically look into TLB and all that thing, will find a, if it was available it will directly access, if it was not available it will go and look into the page table. And in the page table, if it found that it was if the present bit was 0, if the present bit was 0, this diagram I've taken from a different book, so the name may be different, the variable name may be different. So if the present bit was 0 for that page, let us say, that means that page was not on the RAM, so it cannot access that from RAM. So then the hardware will raise a trap, issue a trap instruction, and that trap will actually be handled by a code of the operating system, a trap handler code in the operating system. And that portion of that code will basically find the disk address from where the page has to be fetched from the swap space, and it will issue a read operation from the disk, and then that read operation will get the page from the hard disk and will try to find appropriate location in our RAM to store that. Again, if it is full, then it has to first, before this operation happens, that's why I'm saying this is an incomplete diagram. Before this operation happens, it has to replace one of the existing page frame. It has to swap out to the hard disk, and then in the new space that has been made for the incoming page, it can fill that page into that location. And once that page has been now uh, filled into the RAM, the corresponding page table entry will be updated. Present bit will be made to now 1, and and then again after the entry has been done, then the hardware will retry the instruction. So in the last will be retry, so that the memory reference or whatever would be will be reattempted, and this time it will find that the page is there, the present bit is 1, and it will be able to now get that page from the RAM. So does this overall mechanism make sense? So during this time something will happen. If you can see here what I've put here, OS will context switch to another process and will block the current process. Why?
This is an IO type of operation.
Yeah, this is an IO operation. The disk, any operation reading from disk takes some milliseconds at least, which is very large as compared to nanoseconds of the operations of memory fetch or register operation. So there is no point waiting for that much time for the process. Better block this process and context switch give another process a chance. And that is the other reason why it should retry the instruction. Why it should not continue from there. Generally, whenever this uh, you would have heard, even in cache, whenever there is a cache mission, all things, generally instruction is reattempted, because now new process will start running, it will change the register state and everything and things. So better reattempt so when the process comes back, it will retry the instruction so that there is no side effect, undesired effect that is there in that thing. So that's how this is a overall broad scenario. But as I said, there is some details which are not here. Let me try to write that detail here. But any question till this point? I hope the logic is simple enough to understand. So I'm just going to write us a brief pseudo code of the algorithm of this page fault handler, page fault control flow. It is given in the book already, but just to make it clear, which was not there, we'll just write it here. So what will first for hardware will basically get the virtual address. It will find out from the virtual address how many bits for VPN, how many bits for offset, depending if it is a simple linear virtual table. If it is a more complex, then it has to do all that. But once it understands what is the VPN, then page number, then it will consult the TLB, and this if it is a hit, then it will directly get the page frame number and append with the offset bit, and using that it will be able to access the memory. But if it was a TLB miss, then it will try to fetch the page table entry for that particular page, and if it is a valid, it may it tries to fetch and tries to decode or extract the page table entry. So as I said, it will look into different bits, if is it valid or not. If it is valid, if not, then it will basically cause, say, something called segmentation fault. So remember, many times when we run the program, especially pointer programs and all that, your program gives an error segmentation fault. The name that segmentation fault comes from here. Whenever the page that you're trying to access is an invalid page, it gives a segmentation fault. And the name segmentation comes because, as I said earlier, the earliest method that was used for was supporting virtual address space was segmentation method. So an illegal segment was called segmentation fault. So the name has not been changed. Instead of saying page fault, it says segmentation fault. So if first it checks the valid bit, then it checks the permission bits or the protection bits, whether they are okay or not. If not, then probably it may say illegal permission violation or whatever. And finally, if both these bits are okay, then it will look into the present bit. And if present bit is okay, then it will basically access it and probably update the TLB and all that. But if it's not okay, so we are trying to write the scenario when there is a page fault. So let me just only write when it is not okay, when present bit is not true, then this is a scenario of your page fault or page miss. Okay, so now OS will come, this whenever there is a page fault, the responsibility goes to OS. So OS will come into the picture. OS hardware will simply issue a trap which should be handled by the OS. So the trap will go to the page fault handler code, which will basically try to, first of all, before fetching the new page, it will try to find whether there is a free physical frame available or not. If not, if it is not there, then it has to swap out an existing page to disk, and we'll discuss policies by which it selects the page that has to be swapped out. But if it is fine, if yes, or once it has already swapped out the page, then it will bring in the desired page and update the page table entry. Basically, it will set the present bit to 1 and so on. So I think, yeah, that is a more detailed, I think. So this all sequence this is all the sequence that happens whenever there is a page fault. So there is a lot of work which happens. That means whenever there is a page fault, there is a lot of work and it is going to be expensive. And we will basically try to minimize this, because if this happens, your program will run slowly. So it is going to be an expensive operation. First of all, because your hardware is not doing everything, OS is getting involved, and OS has to run probably a code for finding a replacement page and then read from the disk and all that. So it's going to be an expensive operation, and we have to try to minimize this as far as possible. And that's why a great deal of work has been done on something called finding out a good page replacement policy, which can try to minimize the number of page faults. So that is going to be our discussion in the next class. Basically, I'm just going to maybe talk 2 minutes on this. So the main focus of these policies will be whenever the OS needs to kick out page, has to find which one it should kick out. It has to find which page to kick out. That is going to be the goal of these page replacement policies. So what policies do you think, can you remember, that can be used to select a victim page? Can anybody tell any algorithm or policies that we have studied or that can be used here also? I hope I'm connected, everybody is listening.
Hello.
Hello, I think I got disconnected. Sorry, I could not notice it. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Sir, can you once repeat?
Okay. So this algorithm, I am writing it here, the entire sequence in which this page fault service will be done. So hardware will first decode the virtual address, find the page number, consult the TLB. If it finds, well, it will definitely be there in memory. It will access it. If it is a miss in the TLB, it will first read the page table entry. So once it reads from page table entry, it will check whether it is valid or not, or whether it is permissible to access that page. The permissions, read write permissions are there. If not, it will issue appropriate error and probably kill the process. But if it finds it is not present, then that it knows that it is a page fault thing, and now it will issue a trap instruction. The trap instruction will be handled by the OS using a page fault handler code. In this page fault handler code, basically, it will first find a free physical frame. If it is not there, it will have to swap out an existing page to disk using a page replacement policy. So that we are going to discuss in the next class. So, but once it has swapped out an existing page and made space available in the RAM, it will basically bring in the desired page from the hard disk and update the page table entry and retry the instruction. Finally, it will be returned from trap. It will do, and hardware will basically retry the instruction. But what I wanted to appreciate you that this is going to be an expensive operation. So much things has to be done, and we have to try to minimize this, because running a page replacement policy algorithm and then evicting a reading from the disk is going to be expensive. So our whole focus, that's why a lot of efforts has been done to find out a good replacement policy which tries to minimize the number of page faults that will happen. And this is going to be a discussion in the next class. So I will stop here, I think. Any question till this point?